Guys, it is good to see you. Want to welcome you. Want to welcome all of our campuses. So for those watching in Kenosha, for those in Racine, for those who watch online and you do it faithfully week after week, we want to welcome all of you. And of course, our great Weekends on Wednesday service, we welcome you. And always bring in the energy. So here's the deal before we get started. I want to kind of bring you up to speed. We are halfway through something we are calling the 90-day challenge. So right at the start of February, we introduced something that we said for the next 90 days, would you, if you're a part of Great Lakes Church, this is your church family, would you consider doing one of two things? Number one, would you consider in the next 90 days jumping in and starting to volunteer around here? If you've kind of sat on the sidelines, not gotten involved, would you consider doing that? Or would you consider starting to give back financially on a regular basis if you haven't started doing that yet in your life? And if you want to be really crazy, I mean, free ticket to heaven kind of stuff, would you consider doing both? And so I just want to tell you, we're halfway through, about 45 days in, and man, we've had more people jump on board in the last 60 days in serving than I think in any 6-week period of our church's history, to the best of my knowledge. And then for giving, we've seen our giving grow and increase, and people are starting to participate. And so, of course, we hope that even after the 90 days, we'll continue to move forward. But I just want to say how proud I am of those of you who signed up and you've been committed to this. And even if, for whatever reason, you maybe you weren't here, maybe you just weren't at the time really thinking in that direction, but you said, man, I want to jump into that. You can always go to greatlakeschurch.com/90day to learn about it. But even if you don't sign up, you can jump in and start volunteering. Just use your connection card, which is inside your program. Indicate that you're interested in volunteering. On your way out, put that in the blue recycle bin. Also, if you say, hey, at any point, I just want to jump in and start to give regular and faithfully, you can just put your gift in a silver giving station. You can mail it in or give online. But I'm telling you, we're making progress. So again, you say, I'm kind of sitting on the sideline. Do the 45-day sprint. Get involved and help us finish this challenge strong. So 2 weeks ago, we started a series called Hero Maker. And of course, there's all sorts of heroes in our world, right? There are men that are heroes and there are women that are heroes. Some exist in fantasy, they exist in comic books, they exist in movies. Others exist in real life. Some heroes are relatively new and others are very old. Like Hugo Hercules, who first appeared in comic strips back in 1902. And Hugo would wander around helping people with their problems and shocking them with his amazing strength. Ergo Hercules. And so that was one of the earliest superheroes. For a long time, heroes have played a really big role in our culture. And ever since we were kids, most of us have been told that we ourselves can be heroes, right? We can do anything we set our minds to do. We can accomplish anything, achieve anything, overcome any challenges. That we can become the star of the show. And so from very early on in life, we learn to shine the spotlight on ourselves. And nowhere is this more evidenced than with selfies. Every single day, oh, come on, baby. Right? Every single day, there are more than 90 million selfies taken on Android devices alone. Okay, if you've got kids, that probably seems a little low. But 90 million is still a lot, right? And especially when you consider on Android devices alone. And so just for fun today, we've got this selfie stick. Come on, let's do this thing here. We're gonna see how well we can, oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, man. Weekends on Wednesday service, you're looking good. I promise you not to embarrass you and sell these things on eBay later on, all right? So there you go. Google says 24 billion selfies a year, 24 billion a year are uploaded to Google Photos, all right? That doesn't include Facebook, Instagram, Flickr, iCloud, or any other photo sharing device. 24 billion just to Google Photos. So apparently this is what we do full time. We just take a bunch of pictures. 1 out of every 3 pictures is a selfie. And there are all types of selfies. There are inappropriate selfies, like when you take a picture with your dead grandmother, right? There are selfies gone wrong, like when an animal decides to take advantage of the situation. There are incriminating selfies. These two girls took a selfie just before they robbed a hamburger joint. True story, it took police 47 minutes to track them down. That was it. There are provocative selfies. All right, start to show a little bit of skin. The dad of this particular girl was actually irritated. He felt like all of her pictures were getting more and more provocative, so he decided to mimic her, all right? He became known as Selfie Dad, and so he's got several pictures. Every time he just sees something of his daughter, he goes online and decides, I'm totally gonna take advantage of this, all right? So then there are a category of selfies called dangerous selfies, or death by selfie. More than 250 people have died in the last 8 years trying to take a selfie, which is way higher than the amount of people who've actually died from shark attacks in the last 8 years. So selfies have taken over the world. And in our society, we have learned to place a lot of attention onto ourselves. The camera is focused on us. We are the hero of our own story, and that's fine if you're gonna be the hero. But we're in this series called Hero Maker, and this series is about using our influence and our power to make a difference in the life of others. Now, when I say use your influence and power, it's easy to think, I got a little bit of influence, but the word power is kind of intimidating, and it's very easy to kind of dismiss it and think, well, I don't have power. Yes, you do. All of us have power. Not the same kind of power, but all of us have power. There's all different types of power. There's political power, there's social power where you can do a really good job of connecting people. There's intellectual power, your IQ is just outstanding. You can always trump someone in a conversation. There's financial power. You've got more resources than most people. There's organizational power where you're just high up in the organization. There's positional power. You're the captain of the team. You've been designated to oversee the office. There's family power. You were born into a family with influence. There's birth order power. There's all sorts of power. And so in this series, what I'm hoping you do is recognize the kind of power you have. And after you recognize the power, here's the question you need to ask. How will I use my power? How will I use my power? Most people use the power they have to protect their power and to elevate themselves, right? And that's certainly an option. We see that all the time in our world. But another option is to use the power we have to shine a spotlight on someone else and to try to help someone else along and to elevate other people. It's to become a hero maker. And that's the heart of this series. It's right. The big idea, which is on your note sheet, is simply this, that God doesn't just want to work in you. He wants to work through you. God doesn't just want to work in you. He doesn't want to just do this thing in your life where everybody just says, wow, look at how amazing they are. He wants to work through you where you can see your impact in someone else's life. And so for the last several weeks, we've been talking about, last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the character traits of a hero maker. In week 1, we said that a hero maker looks for the good in others. Right, so a hero maker walks into a room or walks into an office or walks into a home and just trains themselves to look for the good. Because there's so much bad we can see and there's so much negativity and things we can complain about, but a hero maker looks for the good. And they try to call it out. In fact, in looking for the good, there are 4 letters that a hero maker adopts for their own life. I see in you. I see in you a whole lot of potential. I see in you a heart of compassion. It just seems like everybody else has a callous heart, but man, you are soft towards situations and toward individuals, and man, God has given you just an awesome heart towards people, and I call that out in you. Okay, so that was week 1. Week 2, we said a hero maker encourages others. They use their voice, they use their influence, right? They use their words to lift others up and to encourage them. So now we're in week 3, and we're going to spend the rest of the time today talking about this particular thing. Here we go. A hero maker invests in others. Now, if I took a poll today, I am confident that every single one of us would say, I want to be a hero maker, right? Yeah, I want to be a hero, but I also want to be a hero maker. I want to invest my life in others because most of us don't just want a life of prominence. Most of us want a life of significance. This is why when we see people hurting in our world, this is why when we see people who are overwhelmed, this is why when we see problems in our world, unless we have a callous heart, we want to do something about it. We want to fix it. We want to be part of the solution. We want to help move people along in some way. The problem is, there are so many needs in our world that often we don't even know where to start. I mean, just look at a 24-hour news cycle, and it is overwhelming. Natural disasters, college admission scams, financial difficulties, political divisions. A bachelor who deeply loves a girl with all his heart, but her response to him is kind of half-hearted, right? It's just like every day, it's just overwhelming and heartbreaking. And then to compound what we see in the news, all of us have our own issues and our own personal tragedies. And then we have friends and they're going through a divorce, or they're struggling with some in their life, or they were just diagnosed with cancer, or their kid's going through this, or they were in an accident, or their grandfather just got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It's just on and on and on. So when I look at all the needs of the world and all the statistics and all the tragedies and all the problems and all the natural disasters, and then I compound it with my own life and the lives of people within our church family, I'll just say it straight. I get stuck. I don't even know what to do. And so the temptation is to do nothing. Right? I just kind of shut down, and I know I can't fix the problem. Right? These problems have been around for centuries. I can't fix them. And here's the thing. I'm not even convinced I can put a dent into solving these problems. And then to complicate the issue, even if I can make a dent in the problem, often what my helping is enablement. And so there's a fine line between helping and enablement. Right? Often short-term solutions fuel long-term problems. And so it can make it worse. And so, again, it's just overwhelming, and it's a tension that exists. But it's a tension that if you're a follower of Jesus, you cannot ignore. Right? We can't just shut down and check out, and even though that's what's often what we're tempted to do. And what's interesting is this temptation to kind of just shut down and just try to avoid all this because we don't know where to even start. It is nothing new. It's been going on for thousands of years. In fact, we could go all the way back to the first century with the Apostle Paul. He writes a letter to followers of Jesus living in Galatia, which is part of modern-day Turkey. And in his letter, he says many different things, but one of the things he writes about, and one of the things he focuses in on, is this whole thing about social responsibility and what our responsibility is to other people. And Paul, in essence, says, in light of the fact that we can't really change the world, and we can't solve every problem that bothers us, and we can't fix everything that plagues our society, he says, here's what I want you to keep in mind. Here's what he writes. He says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. I love this. Because Paul apparently understands that most of us are wired in such a way that it is very easy for us to become weary and tired in doing good. Morally good, ethically good, helping others good. He realizes at some point we just get tired in doing good. We get tired in being generous. We get tired of trying to fix every problem. We get tired of giving our time to every person who needs our time. We get tired of trying to stay engaged with issues. We get tired of serving. But Paul writes, do not get tired of doing what is good, because at just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Paul says, I understand the exhaustion. I understand the weariness that comes with compassion and trying to carry the burdens of a whole lot of people. I understand it's easy to throw in the towel. I understand that you're going to be overwhelmed with the statistics and the stories and the overload of information and the problems in our world. He says, and I understand it's going to be easy to get to the point where you say, since I can't fix all those problems, I'm just going to disengage and check out. But Paul says, don't disengage, because at some point there's going to be a payoff. At some point there's going to be a harvest. At some point, good is going to happen. Then he writes this, therefore, whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. He says, as you consider your limited amount of opportunities and your limited time and your limited resources and the limited connections you have, as you consider the pace of your life and the margin in your life, do good for everyone, especially to those in your faith family. Now, earlier in the book, he says something similar. Here's what he writes. He says, carry each other's burdens. In spite of the fact that there are problems we can't solve, there are issues that we will never fully address, in spite of the fact that there are problems that will never go away, you are responsible and I am responsible to do what we can for someone somewhere. I can't just turn a blind eye. I'm responsible to invest some of my time, some of my resources, some of my opportunities, some of my connections into the life of another person. One of the voices we listen to a lot around here multiple times a year is Pastor Andy Stanley from North Point Church in Atlanta, Georgia. One of my favorite quotes from Andy Stanley is this: do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. I love this phrase. And the reason I love this phrase is it really does fly in the face of what most of us were taught as kids growing up. Right? We were told it by our parents and our grandparents. We were told it by our teachers. We were told it by authority figures. Whenever we would ask them to do something unique for us or special for us, to allow us to go here, to allow us to have that, the answer so many of us heard growing up as children was this: no. And the reason I can't let you do that is because if I let you do that, then I'm going to have to let everyone. I can't give you that. If I gave you that, then I have to give everyone that. I'm going to say no because if I said yes to you, then I have to say yes to your brother. I have to say yes to your sister. And all through our childhood, we hear this phrase: if I do for one, then I've got to do for everyone. And I'm guessing all of you are a little bit like me. You would hear, well, if I let you do it, I'm going to let everyone do it. And you would think, well, no, you don't. No, we don't have to tell anybody. Right? You could just give me that ice cream and we just, nobody, I'm not going to say anything. You going to say anything? Right? And so we kind of pushed back and argued, and we thought, well, I could be the exception. But this kind of thinking is drilled into us ever since we're kids. And so we carry it into adulthood. And our attitude is, well, if I do it for them, then I got to do it for everyone. But here's the deal. And here's what I need us to understand if we're going to be hero makers. Your responsibility and my responsibility is to do for one what we wish we could do for everyone. To not allow ourselves to get so overwhelmed with all the needs in the world that we just get paralyzed into doing nothing. And that's easy to do, right? You look at all the poverty and you look at all the statistics and you look at the sex trafficking and the drug trafficking and the gangs, and you're just like, I don't even know where to start. And the conclusion that so many people come to is, I'm going to do for no one because I can't do for everyone. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're a follower of Jesus, you can't just crawl into a hole and ignore the issues and pretend that you have no responsibility. And so the solution for us is to begin to ask this question: what can I do for one that I wish I could do for everyone? And I've been trying to build that into the DNA of this church for a very long time. It is the reason why we do not support every missionary that needs support. It is the reason why we do not help launch every new church that asks us to get behind them and help them launch. We say no to a whole lot of people. It's the reason why we don't get behind every effective organization in our community or in our nation or in our world that sends us a letter and says, man, would you consider helping our organization? We've decided we can't do for everyone, but we can do for one. And in the case of our church, we can do for some what we wish we could do for everyone. So every year that we've been at church, almost every year we baptize right around 100 people. Some years a little more, some years a little less. And so over the years, I've come to the point where I realize I can't be involved in the baptism process, right? I get to cheer people on. Usually I speak the day of our baptisms, and so there's so many logistics with the different buildings and campuses and times that I just tell people when they ask, would you baptize me, Dave? I say, man, I would love to. I really would, and I wish I could do that, but I can't do it. I did that in the early days of the church, the first couple years, but after that, I just had to stop. Well, last year, we baptized almost 100 people, and on one particular baptism happened in an evening. I saw that my friend Charlie was getting baptized, and his wife. And I thought, man, I would like to be a part of that. But I've kind of got my rule of thumb that I live by, and I'm just going to say no. But then 2 of my neighbors signed up to get baptized, friends that I feel like I've been able to have a little bit of a part in their spiritual journey. And so I just said, screw it. I'm going to baptize them. I'm gonna get in the tank. I'm gonna be a part of this big moment. It's gonna mean so much to me to do this. And so I just said, I'm gonna do for one, or I'm gonna do for some what I wish I could do for everyone. And even when I made that decision, initially I'm thinking this is problematic. What are the people gonna say that I've said, no, I don't even baptize? Now they're gonna see me baptized. It looks like I'm a liar. And I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. Same is true with baby dedication. We dedicated hundreds of babies at this church, and I've just kind of had this thing where I'll officiate, if that's the right word, or speak at the dedication. A lot of times I don't even do that. A lot of times I just sit and I watch, and I get to participate that way. But 2 or 3 years ago, a couple came up to me, and I knew them. I married them, but didn't know them well. And they said, hey, Dave, we're dedicating our baby. Would you stand with us in the baptism? Not speak at, not do it, just stand with us. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And I'm giving all these things in my mind. And I'm like, well, why not? Screw it. Yes, I can stand with you. I can do for one what I wish I could do for everyone. I can't do that for everyone. We're a baby-making factory at this church. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. But it was so meaningful for me to be able to do that. And the reason I tell you these stories, even though, it's like, Dave, you kind of come across as a jerk when you have to say no and do these things. Listen, I want you to do this in your life. And I promise you, if you start to do this, you will have people who say, well, it's just not fair. And so my encouragement to you is this: don't even try to be fair. Never be fair. Life's not fair. God's not fair. If God was fair, all of our lives would look exactly the same. God's just, but he's not fair. Mama's not fair. Daddy's not fair. Right? Life's not fair. Forget fair. It's not about being fair. If it's about doing something. And if you're deciding in your life, well, I just want to be fair, then you're not going to do anything for anybody, because you can't be fair. You won't do it for one person because you'll justify and say, well, I can't do it for that person. And so a hero maker is not concerned with fairness. A hero maker is not concerned with fairness. My parents are here today, and I can't, it's not even in my notes. I'm just thinking, I hope when it comes to the wills someday, they're not fair. And they just bless me. And I don't know why that's in my mind. All right, just planting a seed there. Planting a seed, right? So if I let you go, I've got to let everybody go, right? Don't buy into that thinking as an adult. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. And here's the reason this is such a big deal. Because my prayer for us in this series is that in the coming days, in the coming weeks, while this is on our mind, God would open our mind and open our eyes to a family, an individual, someone in our workplace, that he just puts it on your heart and says, that's your one in this season. And that when he opens your eyes, your attitude would be, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna engage in that. If you're willing to open your eyes and you're willing to do for one what you wish you could do for everyone, I'm telling you, God will bless it. And let me just give you a couple of little tips that I've adopted on how to do this. All right, you want to be a hero maker? You want to invest your life? 3 things I want to share with you. Here we go. Number 1 is go deep rather than wide. All right, you have a passion for middle school and high school kids because you had a miserable middle school or high school experience. It was a disaster for you, so you said, man, I've got such a passion for them. Well, you could walk through the hallways and high-five people and occasionally send a text to someone and say, hey, I thought of you today, hope you're doing well. Or you could really pour your life into a small group of middle school and high school students. And I'd encourage you, if this is your passion, like sign up to volunteer with our middle school or high school group and just give it your all. And our pastors in that area will give you a group of students that you begin investing in and pouring your life into. Don't just have this general concern for students out there. I mean, do something. 22 years ago, I was a student ministries pastor, and which meant I just spent my life working with teenagers and kind of pastoring them and overseeing them. And I had one particular kid in my first youth group that I oversaw whose name was Jeremiah. All right, there's Jeremiah there on the left. I don't know what's under my eyes on the right and why I'm wearing such a ridiculous shirt, but there you go, all right? Well, I saw a ton of potential in Jeremiah, and I spent a disproportionate amount of time with Jer than with the other kids. I had several I see in you conversations. One of my biggest ongoing conversation with Jer was, I see in you a tremendous leader. One day, Jer told me, he says, Dave, I want to be a pastor. I just feel it. It's in me. I sense this is what I want to do with my life. And so I said at that point, well, Jer, why don't you intern with me? And so I spent time with Jer and poured into him. And anytime I would learn something, I would share it with him. And for the past 22 years, this has just continued. So he went from interning with me to he was a youth pastor and did tremendous work. And then he started a church and our relationship has morphed. I'm not this mentor in his life anymore as much as we're friends, but on a weekly basis, I'll still connect with him 2-3 times. And so today he's leading this growing church right outside of Minneapolis. He's got a family of his own. I tell you this because I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids go through the student ministry programs that I oversaw, but I haven't given them the equal attention. The same kind of attention that I gave Jared. I had some serious I, see, and you conversations. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Don't just be concerned about the plight of the poor and what's happening in the world in a general sense. No, find someone, find an individual, find a family. You just say, you know what? They're in a difficult season. This isn't a lifestyle. This isn't where they're going to be the rest of their life. This is a season, and I can help them through this season. I'm telling you, our tendency is to go wide and not deep, because wide is easy. I'll just give you $5 and you $10 and you $100, give you $75 here, $1 there, $1 everywhere, $1, right? Everybody's like, woo! And that's great, right? And we'll feel good about ourselves and we'll feel like we're making a difference, and you are. I don't want to minimize like helping people in a general sense, but you want to make a real difference, a real impact? Go deep rather than wide. So Lisa, who works at our church, she sent out a message to the staff about a week ago and said, hey, there is a individual who is going to be coming to Kenosha for the summer. They're going to be interning with Kingfish, and they need a host home. Or is anybody familiar with, or someone maybe who's willing to host someone in their house? And I knew the moment I saw it, I said, man, I could throw this out at Great Lakes and we'd have plenty of people step up and say, yeah, I'd be happy to host an intern from Kingfish, because we just kind of have that generosity spirit in our church. But I got talking to my wife and I just said, hey, I think I'm going to put this in a message and ask if someone would be willing to open their house. But before I do that, you think we could do that? I said, we've got this room in the basement. Our basement's finished. I said, what do you think about doing that? And so we talked about it and she said, yeah. And I said, we have this opportunity for 3 or 4 months to go deep with someone. And I think we're going to do it. And so sent off a message and still waiting to hear back, but said, hey, we'd be willing to, and here's what we're able to do. And then part of my, hidden motive is then I can tell my daughters who are a little bit older, hey, we don't have room anymore at the house. We got someone else living here now, so it's not all innocent. But man, that's how you make a difference. We read about a guy named Job in our Bible. And Job was incredibly wealthy, incredibly successful, had so much going for him, but then he went through a season of loss. And it was loss after loss after loss in his life. Just got to the point of just brokenness. And in his brokenness, here's what we read. When 3 of Job's friends heard of the tragedy he had suffered, they got together and traveled from their homes to comfort and console him. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights. No one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. He had friends that just came and said, we're going to be present with you. That's deep. My wife took some time last week to go visit her birth mom in Indiana, and she's only known her birth mom now for about 5 years, and she's dying of cancer, and so she's been wrestling with that. Well, one of the ladies at our church who just invests in my wife, pours time into her, and just has been a dear friend to her, messaged her and said, hey, I know you're going to visit your birth mom. I just want you to know if you just need someone to drive with you and sit with you. I don't have to go in the hospital room. I don't have to meet any family member. I don't have to do any of that. I'm willing to just drive there with you and take a Sunday and do that for you. And obviously, that person can't do that for everybody. But you got to find someone in your life that you just say, I'm going to go deep rather than just wide. Second tip is this: go long-term rather than short-term. See, it's easy to go short-term on anything. And there's nothing wrong with having a few individuals that you say, I'm going short-term with them. I'm going to be with them in this small season. There's nothing wrong with being short-term with a few organizations and say, I'm going to help fuel their mission. But true impact is when we go long-term rather than short-term. So for the past 5 years, we have held a prom. We hosted the prom. We came up with it here in our area, and it's a prom for individuals with special needs. to one day a year event. And over the past couple years, we've kind of been wrestling with, is this the best way to make a difference? It's just one day. Is this the best way to have a long-term impact? And so we, as we wrestled through it, decided that instead of hosting a prom this year, we're actually going to spend resources and time trying to create rooms in our buildings for individuals with special needs so that we can have a long, ongoing, weekly type of impact with those with special needs. But these one-day events got into our heart. They did something to us. They created this eye-opening experience for us, like, man, this is what we want to do. And so we've made the decision this year, this is where we're gonna use the resource, and time is in our rooms, but God has honored our heart. Because when other churches and organizations found out about this, they stepped forward, and even was in the last week where a group of people approached and said, okay, we've been talking now, we wanna take this over. And so we're gonna be able to hand off the torch to them. Our church can still get involved, antrprom.com, right, nighttorememberprom.com. We can get involved still, and you'll hear about that in the coming weeks. But that all came from a heart of saying, man, we want to go long-term, not just short-term. We want to go more than just one day a year. How do we make a difference? Right? The same is true with our Royal Family Kids Camp. For the last several years, we've taken a week, and we've had so many volunteers who've stepped up and sacrificed vacation time and said, man, we want to spend time with kids who are in foster care. We want to make a difference in their life. But those same volunteers come back and say, man, it's awesome to give a week of our life to these kids, but man, we just think it'd be so much better if we could do this throughout the year. How do we make a bigger impact? And so this fall, we're going to be launching a mentoring program. That doesn't mean we won't do one-day mission events. This doesn't mean we won't do short-term mission trips. It just means there are a few ministries that in order to make a deeper impact, a greater impact, we're gonna go long-term rather than short-term. The third little tip I wanna share with you is this: go time, not just money. Okay, I'm all for giving money. Right, Marindy and I, we make this a practice in our life. We don't just give back to the mission work here at Great Lakes on a weekly basis. We try to fuel different works that we become aware of, different benefits, different mission work that we just say, man, we wanna be a blessing to others. But do not use money to keep you from investing your time. Because I think a lot of you are like me. You'll just say, yeah, I'll write the check for that. Yeah, I'll give money to that. I'll support that. Don't use money as an excuse to keep you from investing your time. Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Find the one group or the one person, the one issue, the one need, the one kid, the one couple, the one guy, the one struggling marriage, and say, I'm gonna give them my time. And I'm gonna open up a little bit of my schedule so that I can invest in them. My responsibility isn't to change the world, but it's to make a difference in the life of somebody. Last week or the week prior, Kylie Jenner was named the youngest self-made billionaire by Forbes magazine. And there's a whole lot of backlash that came about this article and being named self-made billionaire out of the term self-made. And the pushback was nobody is self-made, especially Miss Jenner. And that's because at some point, somebody gave her an opportunity. Somebody believed in her. Somebody had an I see in you conversation. Somebody loaned her something in order for her to move forward. And I agree with the pushback. There's not a person on this planet who's truly self-made. We've all had someone who helped us get to where we are in life. Who are you doing that for in your life? It's easy to disengage, but we need to stay engaged. You got a group of people that you meet with on a regular basis, keep meeting with them. You have someone that you connect with coffee here and there, but you do it intentionally, keep doing it. Maybe the way you stay engaged is you say, man, I'm opening my home for a foster kid. I'm opening my home for someone to adopt. Whatever it is, my challenge to you is that you would do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. All of us have a little bit of time, and all of us have a little bit of opportunity. And so let's not run and hide and cover up and just say, well, I'm just overwhelmed. Do for one, do for some what you wish you could do for everyone. This is what Jesus did. He had crowds of people who wanted to be around him. And he went around and he said, I want you on my team, and you, and you, and you, and I'll take you. And he surrounded himself with 12 guys and spent 3 years pouring into them. And then when his time on this planet had come to an end, he said, now you guys go. And here we are 2,000 years later, and more than 2 billion people claim to follow Jesus because he invested. He invested. He went deep rather than just wide. He went long term rather than just short term. And he gave time, not just money. Let's be thinking about who we can do it for. Let me pray for you. Our Heavenly Father, I pray open our eyes to that person, to that individual, to that mission work, to that family, to that coworker, to that child who needs an investment in this season. Put it on our heart, put it in our mind, put it in our spirit. Give us the wisdom to know how to be a hero maker and the courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.